Good morning.
Rainy morning here, man.
Oh, yeah. Myra, where are you at?
I am in rainy New York City this
Oh, yeah,
morning.
it is raining up there too,
all right,
huh?
up the coast.
Up the coast, yeah. So I actually would love to take a quick opportunity just to ask how we say your name. Is it Myra? Is it Jaya? Let's just get this out of the way.
Feel free to call me Myra. My nom de plume is Jaya Jaya Myra.
Gotcha. So I got to ask, how did that happen? How did that happen? What are we talking about here? Yeah.
So it's part of a longer spiritual name that I was given, but I have adapted this portion of it, like for my books, media appearances. I didn't want to write or publish books under my actual name because my last name was from my ex-husband, and I swore after I got divorced I'm not going to do anything under that name. So I'm like, I'm going to publish a book. It's going to be under a nom de plume.
No need to memorialize that. Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, eventually I'd like to settle down again, get married, maybe change my name. So I'm like, well, books, media, my personal brand is not going to go away even if my name changes.
Correct. Yeah.
The nom de plume made a lot of sense when my books were published.
And it's funny, over the years, I've known various people who did have a married name that went through a divorce, and it was sort of an awkward transition for them because they're like, well, especially some that were more known, it's like, all right, now everybody knows me as this. And now I
have to change.
Stuck in this vortex.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool. Well, thank you for clearing that up because I was curious how that came about. But so along those same lines, if somebody's giving you a spiritual name, I feel like there's a story behind that in general. So let's just talk about how you got here and, what a little bit about your journey.
There is definitely a little bit of a story behind that. In like my particular spiritual tradition and lineage, our teacher did give a lot of different people names. He did not give me a name, however. I was like one of the very few people that he did not. He himself, like his spiritual name had come to him in meditation, and that's like the way that he said happened with his teachers as well. I got really frustrated one day at the whole thing, and I went into a meditation and I said a prayer and I asked, and then I was like revealed like the whole name instantly at that point. So asking you shall receive.
Asking you shall receive. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is interesting. So yeah, a lot of times in spiritual traditions, especially Eastern traditions, those names are a lot longer with a lot of pomp and circumstance. So I don't think that that's like really applicable here in the West. So I just kind of
truncated it down.
Jaya Jaya Myra. And it was very interesting to me too that my birth name, given name of Myra, was still included in that name, which to me, names really do hold a lot of power, vibrational frequency. They have an energy behind them that shapes you psychologically and emotionally. So it was very much, to me, this affirmation of saying, hey, you've already been given everything that you need to succeed just in the power of your name, because it wasn't completely changed. It was just added on to.
We've talked about similar things on the show a number of times, but I do think that there's a really undervalued power of words themselves in general.
Very much.
Right.
Well, we've definitely talked about neuro-linguistic programming and what gets, I guess, more personal than the thing that you get called all
Every
the time.
Yeah.
Subconscious and unconscious and conscious and everything. And sound frequency, like if you wanted to like take this back to Sanskrit, people either say Sanskrit or Tamil are like the original languages. But if we want to go with Sanskrit, all of like the letters in the alphabet, they have a different frequency for what they represent and what they create. Again, in Eastern traditions, they believe that everything manifests ultimately from thought, but then through sound and down through the elements. So the sound carries the frequency of like different energies, and these are all within the body as well, which is pretty cool. But anyway, I learned how to do this thing a while back, which was to look at people's names and understand that vibrational frequency of the sounds in a person's name and how it relates like back to the original like Sanskrit alphabet and what these vibrations actually signify in an esoteric sense. And it is always spot on. Like when I do readings for people and when I tell them like about what their name means and like the frequency that they carry, it always does relate to what's going on psychologically and emotionally, even if they've had like no connection to Eastern traditions or meditation before. It's undeniable, like undeniable. Like Matt, for example, with your name starting with an M, like that vibration, it's strong and powerful, and like the ma, like that's very maternal. You will be more in touch with your feminine energy than a large amount of men are, which means that like you have the capacity, you know, you see things like very holistically and inclusively, and the way that your reality is shaped, I think, has an equal respect for the masculine and the feminine.
That's very it's very accurate. Actually, my wife and I, she's like, sometimes you're such a girl. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
Like after going to the movies with you the other night, I'm like, yeah, she's the no bullshit one. She's
Yeah.
You'll indulge in the bullshit. She will not.
No. Yeah, we went to go see this film, Music for Mushrooms, and it was okay. It wasn't
okay. Is that probably good swing.
But it was really far down the woo-woo trail. Like it was out there. The guy's doing some pretty interesting work, bringing ceremony and music together in sort of an improv type thing, and the seats are like these yoga mats, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it looks like I'd want to go to one of those events. I'm not so sold on watching a movie about it.
The movie meandered quite a bit, and around several topics, but never really hit any one of them strongly.
And my wife was like, "Yeah, so."
And I think my wife was just happy, like, "Oh, we went out, we did something. This is great." And she always responds emotionally, which is funny. So she was really like, "Oh God, there was something so peaceful about that." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, the dude's playing music and everyone's sitting in a dark room, on mushrooms. It's like, it's not a bad time,
But it's funny after that though. Myra, when I described it, she's like, "You use so many words." And I was like, "Because I'm painting a picture." She goes, "I saw the movie. I
was in the room with you."
Anyway. But yeah, so that I love that kind of stuff, by the way, because and we've got a friend that we go to breakfast with from time to time who gets us off on these wild tangents. And basically, the last conversation we had with him was about like how we just sort of download from the universe these things when we are able to download them, right? And when it comes to what you're saying, like my parents named me, but they didn't know who the hell I was. They didn't know anything about me, but somehow there's pieces of that like I couldn't imagine me being called anything else, right? My son, same way. Like he is so his name, and my daughter is so her name, that it seems unfathomable they could have been anything else, right? Like, it's like, you're not Frank. Like I couldn't, you know what I mean? Like it just nothing makes sense, right? But like, how does that come to be? Like that's an interesting thing to think about.
So does it come to be because we tune into what the people are, or do the people tune into who they are because they hear the frequency over and over and over again?
That is
probably a little bit of both, to be honest.
Sure.
Well, esoteric nature versus nurture kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think they definitely go hand in hand. I know when my kids were born, I didn't really feel like I had a choice in their names. I did a lot of research and like looking at baby names and just honing in for both of them. They were both like Celtic Welsh names, interestingly enough. And I do think that they fit their personalities. But yeah, I didn't feel I had any choice in what I named my kids.
Are you Celtic or Welsh?
Yes.
You are. Okay.
I am, but I don't know that I knew that like at that time.
I see. Okay.
I do have an incredible amount of Welsh ancestry: Irish, Scottish, Welsh, and Native American.
Oh wow, that's a hell of a mix.
It is. It's a very interesting mix. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we I guess 23andMe has really kind of been an interesting tool for humanity, right? Because my older family members have kind of, with time on their hands, they're retired, have all gone through various bouts of like looking up 100 cousins they never knew they had and all this, and it is weird how families kind of come together, right? Like I found out that my maternal side helped settle Curie Lake in California, right? Like but that happened hundreds of years ago, or whatever, whenever that happened. I'm not even sure the timing, but like they were married to Native American Canadians, right? So it's like, so they kind of like, you can kind of see how it goes. Somebody came from Europe, they came over here somehow, they got lost in the woods, they met a Native American, they got married, they had a kid, they started migrating around, and it's just, you can kind of paint this crazy picture in your head.
Yeah.
But like, it's all part of, what frames us and who we are and everything. But it's like, we never used to know that, which is like, so now it's like a question of like, do you get to like validate that vibrational energy because you now know where it came from, or do you sort of placebo effect your way into that because you now found out this information? You see what I'm saying? Like,
And I feel bad for the families who feel like they have to keep up appearances and not say the truth about situations, because now, yes, with 23andMe and Ancestry and all these other places, people can find out if their lineage is what it has been told it has been or not. So definitely shake a lot of things up.
Well, my great-grandmother was born in Portugal. Their whole family's Portuguese, and they swear to God up and down they're Portuguese. I mean, everything Portuguese, everything.
Yes.
Well, 23andMe found out that in the 1600s, there was a mass exodus, or 1700s maybe, from Wales to Portugal. I think because of religious persecution. I could have that wrong.
Okay.
But they settled on the island my great-grandmother is from. So when I got my results back, I'm thinking like, mostly Portuguese, 5% Portuguese, 60% Welsh. Like, I was like, oh, okay. And then it said even on there, they're like, oh, your family was part of this migration that happened from Wales to Portugal. My grandmother was like, bullshit. Nope. That didn't happen. I'm like,
I know, right?
Yeah, no, this is science, man. This isn't bullshit. I have no reason to lie about this. Like, I don't care where I'm from, but you might want to know, right?
She cares where she's from because it just,
oh my God.
Story then.
Oh no, she died about a year or two ago, and she went to her grave like, I'm Portuguese straight through and through, period, end of story. Like, there's no, and I'm like, well, or you're like 75, 80% Welsh, but hey, like what,
Portuguese, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So were you born into a family situation that sort of made you sort of receptive to these concepts, or did you sort of discover this as an adult, or how did you?
I would say yes, receptive to these concepts, definitely, but also facing a lot of adversity and difficulty during my childhood, I think also pushed me in this direction. I think whether it's through being welcoming or the opposite, we get pushed where we need to be. But my mom was I would describe her, as a hippie, essentially. She didn't meditate, practice mindfulness, follow any sort of Eastern path, but she was very much a free thinker and more open-minded about things. So I think that made it easier for me to be that way as well.
Sure.
And surprisingly, even though like I grew up going to a Christian church, and I still to this day don't know like how they quite got away with doing this, but we had Sabbath school teachers because we went to church on Saturdays, not Sundays.
Okay.
Not Jewish, but anyway. They very much taught us like about inner discernment and how to believe whatever it was we wanted to believe, even if it contradicted the doctrine and the faith. I think that their thought at the end of the day was, if you look at this through a discerning eye, you're going to come around to believing what this believes anyway, because you'll be able to see the logic in it. But they didn't quite present it in that way. And so I would say some of the more astute younger people, I don't know, maybe I was like one of the only people, but I definitely formed my own opinions about things, even if they were not in alignment like with the rest of the doctrine.
What the hell church?
Yeah, I was going to ask. Like, I was like, which one is actually allowing you to think for yourself?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't think that the religion overall would have allowed you to think for yourself, because I grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist church. So that's not about thinking.
That's definitely not about thinking for yourself.
Yeah. I don't understand like how like those two teachers got away with what they did, but hallelujah, because I think it helped shape a lot of minds in a very positive way to say, hey, don't just believe something because we're telling you to believe it. Understand why you believe this and see if this really works for you.
truthfully though, that's the baller version of I'm right. I know I'm right.
It is.
I know you're going to think I'm right. So just go do whatever the hell you want because you're going to come back here. I mean, that's like some gangster level like belief in what you're doing, right? Like, I mean, that's
well, it kind of backfired for them when it came to me.
I'm sure. And it probably backfires for a lot of people, but I think you probably lose a little bit of that guilt, that, oh, they said this was okay.
Right.
Absolutely. Because especially as a child, you don't want to go against what other people are teaching you as right or wrong, especially elders. It takes a lot of strength and courage. And I think just maturity to get to the point where you are really okay thinking for yourself and validating your own beliefs. I think it's something we all need to do. If you really want to walk a spiritual and consciousness path anyway, at some point, you got to validate everything you believe and why and see if it still works for you. For me, that just started when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. So it made it much easier as I got older.
Well, you're just even being introduced to those concepts at that age. Like, I mean, that's different. I mean, I was Catholic school K through 12. And as I have lovingly referred to that experience, I said, there is nothing better to cure yourself of Catholicism than going to Catholic school for K through 12. Like that'll pretty much put that nail in the coffin real fast.
I'm pretty sure CCDC was enough for me. And that was only 1 hour a week.
Yeah. I was like, because Catholic school is the opposite of that, right? Catholic school is like, hey, this is the right way to do it. If you're not doing this, then you should feel like shit and you're going to hell, right? So
most people in most religions are anyway. And there's definitely tons of people, even in my church, that believed that way. So yeah, it was this nice little bubble of everything and its opposite.
And I think it's funny because if people, especially the deeper religious zealots out there, if they were able to sort of elevate above that conversation for even a moment, they'd realize that spirituality, meditation, religion, God, Buddha, Allah, whatever, like they're all sort of, in my view anyway, and I think a lot of people have various ways of describing this, but they're all sort of different words for the same sort of thing, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that's the funny part about it. Like me not believing in a Judeo-Christian guy in the sky sitting on a cloud doesn't mean that I'm not deeply spiritual, that I'm not deeply connected to a universal narrative. I'm all of those things.
I heard him called Sky Daddy once, and I think that's my favorite thing. But I mean, you're describing basically what was that, Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna reveals himself. It doesn't matter who you call me, it's me.
Right.
I mean, if you know anything about me, I love the Bhagavad Gita.
I figured that. Your name says victorious twice in a row.
Yeah.
But see, that's normally associated with the goddess Durga.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a lot of people relate that to Krishna or the Gita. But like where you see like Jaya Jaya, the most frequently is in the Mahishasura Mardini Stotram for the goddess Durga. Jaya Jaya He Mahishasura Mardini Ramya Kapardini Shailasate. Basically, salutations to the great goddess Durga who destroys the buffalo demon Mahishasura, which ultimately is representative of egoism in mankind. Yeah, but I have even a nonprofit called Gita for the Masses, which is around conscious character development and helping people become more conscious to overcome their typical problems and be victorious in life so that we're not stressed or have anxiety or guilt or shame or the other problems that people face so that we can go out and create a better impact in the world. I'm very, very much in alignment with developing psychologically, emotionally in a conscious way. And I think that the Bhagavad Gita is the penultimate scripture for doing that.
Oh, it's interesting. So actually that's a good segue into what my next question was, which is, okay, so you've got this sort of foundation that kind of keeps your pathways open for this. You said it's informed a little bit by childhood trauma, but like you have, I mean, and looking at your books, right, you've got a vibrational healing one, of a purposeful soul, right? Like these are sort of, I don't want to say heavy lifts, but they're pretty intense topics, right? Like they're pretty deep topics. I mean, how do you sort of make that leap? Because it seems like something else then happened that kind of pushed you down this deeper form of expression.
deeper
Yeah.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
The 30-second elevator version of that was
I mean, we've gotten out.
It's a long form podcast. Take your time.
Yeah. I mean,
if you just talk for the next 20 minutes, it makes it easier for me. I tend to hang out in the background anyway.
Basically, I came down with really debilitating fibromyalgia at a point in my life. And I guess the icing on that cake for me was that Western medicine not only did not make me better, it made me worse. So I needed to just find alternate solutions.
I heard about 5 times a clinic shift.
Yeah.
I'd already started meditating at that point, and I'd already started on my journey, and I had seen how beneficial it was for me. So I just dove full force into meditation and mindfulness. Of course, some dietary change and stuff like that, but I still attribute over 85% of that recovery to just meditation and mindfulness and this inner discernment of like knowing who I am and what I believe.
So let me, if you don't mind peeling this back a little bit, because fibromyalgia is a distinctly physical presentation.
I want to say something so nerdy right now, but let you do your thing.
No, I feel free to jump in whenever, but I know that there's a lot of, especially with fibromyalgia.
It's not a disease. It is a syndrome of exclusion, basically. It's like, we've tested you for all these other possible diseases, and if you still exhibit a certain number of these traits, we're going to label you with this syndrome. It's almost like a wastebasket syndrome. It's like,
we call it a garbage pail diagnosis, because if it's syndrome, we don't understand the pathophysiology of it. So theoretically, they can't do much to treat you.
Yes, but
for a long time they said, it doesn't exist. It's all in your head, and you went home with antidepressants.
And now they know that it is, because it makes your pain receptors a little bit more heightened, because the neural sheath, it just doesn't quite act as much as it should. So you actually do feel more physical pain and sensation in the body. And I know there's many schools of thought out there that now believe and teach, and I guess I fall into this as well. I think pretty much every person who is diagnosed with fibromyalgia has gone through some sort of traumatic abuse at some point in their life, anywhere from 10 to 25 years prior to their diagnosis.
Oh, wow.
Eventually, the body does keep score of everything. And if you repress very feelings, emotions, which also happens very naturally, that the mind is trained to repress things that is too much to deal with. So like, you literally don't lose your mind. But when you do that, eventually it's going to come out through the body, because it needs to be let go and it needs to be healed, which is probably also why it's more women than men that are diagnosed with fibromyalgia, because a lot of women, unfortunately, have more instances of physical abuse or rape.
Oh, interesting. So the meditation part of that,
I got a theory on that.
How does that kind of tamp down this like hyper physical presentation of the syndrome, garbage pail diagnosis, whatever you want to call it? But like, how does the meditation part curb that?
So when you do more silent forms of meditation, it actually helps to get the parasympathetic nervous system rebalanced. So it's basically, your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. Your parasympathetic nervous system, that other half of it, is what governs sleep, recovery, health, your immune response. And when you face trauma, other negative situations, being stressed too much, high cortisol levels, basically the parasympathetic nervous system doesn't work as well, or shuts off almost completely. And you just go on to this fight or flight kind of overdrive, adrenal fatigue, all these different things. And it eventually just takes a toll even on your nervous system. So when you are able to sit in silent meditation and go deep into that and activate different brain waves and part of your psyche, you actually help to reawaken that parasympathetic nervous system so it can kick in and start letting your body just heal from the inside out.
Interesting.
And it's not even just like fibromyalgia. After I learned how to meditate effectively, I stopped getting sick. Like I never came down with COVID. I don't come down with colds. I have not come down with the flu. I do not get sick, period, unless I'm in an extreme instance of emotional distress, which dating in itself will bring that to you. But that's an entirely other story. But yeah, I stopped getting sick at that point. And I was one of those people that would be sick every month or two, stomach problems, sinus infection, ear infection, something. And then after maybe like a solid year of meditation, I no longer got sick. I was no longer anxiety prone. Prior to meditation, I was on anti-anxiety medication. I had to take Xanax for panic attacks. Even within just 6 months of meditating consistently, never had to take a Xanax ever again.
This is pretty amazing because you're linking the cortisol to the ANS, right? And physiological changes in your brain. This is so cool. Your amygdala actually gets smaller with regular meditation, and that's your fear response, right? And I think, Matt, we've probably seen this, God, with almost every guest that has a meditation practice where
100%.
We've knocked down that, and it's so weird because a lot of times when I see fibro, there's so many other comorbidities in there, like they'll have POTS disease, POTS syndrome. Another one they might have EDS, where hyper mobile joints, and they run into this bucket of autoimmune disorders, and a lot of that is because that limbic system is just
and some of it's quite scary, like scleroderma. Also, that's like your skin essentially turns into stone. But you have to look at it as the way that you have psychologically dealt with whatever has happened to you and where your weaknesses are. So apparently some people feel they need that physical strong barrier, and it affects their skin. It's very interesting, like the way the mind interprets things and like turns it into disease. But yes, the more that you meditate, the less fearful you are. I think just the more connected we're able to feel in general, but it'll have psychological, emotional, physical impacts that you wouldn't even be able to consciously identify. But meditation, it is like peeling back that onion, but it can get to things that you can't consciously target on your own.
Right.
It's going to go down the path in the way and order it needs to be gone down, and start, again, just like peeling back the onion. So you have to stay consistent with things. That's the only way to rewire the neural programming in the brain, is to do stuff consistently and daily.
And I think I went through a couple years where I was like real militant about this stuff. Like I would be doing it a lot and it would be very regular. And then I'd go through periods where I wouldn't do it at all because I got busy. I'm at a point now though, where I've got, dozens to hundreds of little sort of practices that I could pull into play at any given point. And I think I'm what I call my maintenance phase now, where I'm just like, look, I also, like you, I don't get sick very often, but when I do, it's funny that you said that, because now I'm thinking back, I'm like, when was the last time I was sick? And it was a little bit over the holidays, and it was because I was in this like emotionally turbulent area of time where it's like the end of the year and clients are crazy and family obligations.
Oh my gosh, clients were crazy at the end.
Yeah, right. And so I kind of like, it made sense, because I let off that gas pedal a little bit. Right. Like, and I didn't keep going with these practices, and sure as shit, there we go. Like I just fell off a wagon. But it is interesting. And I guess the reason I was asking about the meditation part of that is because when you found that, did you sort of find it because you sort of felt that way, or did other people say, hey, you should try this thing out? And
it sounds like it was more of a bigger spiritual practice.
It was more of a bigger spiritual practice, but I come to that spiritual practice because I was suffering anxiety and things. And I had a friend at the time who said, you should learn to meditate. My guru, my spiritual teacher, is going to be traveling from India in a few weeks. I think you should meet him. And that's really what started all of that stuff, I guess.
And away you went.
And away I went. And I don't really think that we have control per se over that stuff. I think you find your teacher at the right time. Like some things are very predestined. Like for me, it really was more of like remembering and waking up, because the second I saw him, it was just like a light bulb went off. And reading the Gita for the first time, it was almost just like chills and just like instant awakening, and just knowing there's a different way and a better way, and it's already there inside of you and you can feel it. So for me, there was like literally no looking back. Like my life was just night and day difference.
And we've heard this before, dreaming yourself awake, like in various versions of that. But
I might have said that in that Mushrooms movie.
They possibly did. Yeah. But like, it's an interesting idea. I mean, I had a coach a long time ago that said, at the moment right before your father ejaculated into your mother and you chose human form, why did you choose it? I'm like, well, there's a fucking question, isn't it? Like,
Well,
what? But it,
to live your purpose. And kind of the beauty behind all this stuff that's dealing with purpose. It's one of the things I like to talk about in my books, because I don't hear other spiritual teachers saying this, and I don't know why. Like, your entire psyche, emotions, and even your physical body type and your appearance, this is all part of the matrix that was given to you so that you can live and fulfill your purpose. Everything that is a part of either your physical appearance, your stature, the way you think, or the way you feel, was literally, you were given the strengths to do your purpose, because there is an interconnection in all things and all energies. So if you didn't have the name you have, if you didn't have the elemental or dosha composition that you have, you would not adequately be able to live and fulfill your purpose, which is why it is so important to like dive into our strengths and our talents and our perceived weaknesses and understand those things, like, so we can really hone in on what we're supposed to be doing here.
So the books that you started to kind of produce on this journey, is there sort of a tie that binds them? They seem to be, you know, I mean, I guess summarily they're wellness type books.
They're very similar. Funnily enough, a publisher asked me to write my first book, and you know, everyone says, "Oh, that never happens." I'm like, "Well, it did."
Right. Don't know what to tell you.
Write this book on vibrational healing, and I'm like, "Why do you want me writing a book on vibrational healing?" They're like, "Well, we can't find anyone, and we loved the articles you wrote in this magazine." I was publishing in Yoga Magazine and Tatas too at the time, and so like, write us a book on vibrational healing, which was the last thing on the planet I wanted to write a book on, but I believe in saying yes to all opportunities, unless, you know, it's something that, you know, would be very, very bad for you or cause imminent physical harm. So I said yes, and I turned it into what I wanted it to be, and I let it take shape. And I started teaching people about elements and their elemental constitution and how it relates to Ayurvedic doshas and the 5 elements in Chinese medicine, which are a little bit different, but like the overlaps in it, and how this shapes the mind, the emotions, and the body, and how to find healing modalities that will work for you, and meditations and spiritual practices based on your unique elemental type. And that's still very foundational to the work that I'm doing now. I don't like to say, "Oh, I don't believe in, hey, here's this one meditation technique that's going to fix your life." If you learn a technique that is not in alignment with your type, you may walk away and never meditate again in your life.
Yeah.
And I think that happened to me very early on. I was given 2 meditation techniques. One was beautiful, blissful, perfect. I resonated with it, had great experiences. Another one, I hated it, and it was a slog and a struggle every single time that I had to do it. And I later realized the one that I really enjoyed is because it had mantra and visualization. So that related to space, ether element, and visualization to fire. Very, very strong, like fire in my constitution, in my astrology. This is my makeup, like sound and fire, very strong in my constitution. The other one, the breathing based practice, I have practically no elemental composition, astrology, anything in air element. So it was such a struggle for me to be able to do that. If that was the only technique I had been given, I would not be on the path I am today.
Interesting. So, and that's actually kind of a, in and of itself, probably an atypical observation of the experience. I think most people would just be like, that sucked. Like, they wouldn't have peeled it back to a level where they could understand like why this one was suboptimal, why this one.
I didn't at the time. This was like many years later.
Well, until you have that 50,000 foot view, though, and you see the systems for what they are, you think this just doesn't work. Oh, I tried that, right? No, you tried this style of this.
Exactly.
And I mean, in the same way, Matt and I have these conversations about like, no, I like weightlifting and he likes running. Yeah. Well, we're constitutionally different, you know, and that's where it comes down to on a physical sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can understand that, because like Tom, you definitely have like more earth and water element in your constitution, and Matt has a little bit more, I think, fire and air, you know, balanced overall, but definitely more fire. So that makes sense. I actually don't like running at all. I like stamina based things as, you know, as well. I'm a Pilates reformer sort of person.
There you go. Yeah, I told people, I'm like, I could run from here to California. I just can't do it fast. So like, but
Matt was like, I can get you up and running in a marathon. I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
like, no.
Go run, catch me on the ballroom dance floor, and
Oh, that's fun. Yeah. And you know what though? I mean, like I'm trying to frame up a little experiment for the show actually on a weightlifting protocol just because I'm curious. But like, I've been trying to get this off the ground for like 4 months, but it is like torture in my brain to try to figure out how to like gut out a 90-day workout period. Like that's all I got to do. I got to do this for 90 days. You think like, God, I could do anything for 90 days. Well, as it turns out, I might not be able to do this. Like I'm just like, my brain is struggling. Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to do it for the curiosity aspect of it, and curiosity fuels my very existence. So like, I feel like that's where I recharge my battery. That's how I thrive. And so like, I think once I get into something, it would be better. But man, to you guys' point, some things you're just not made for, right? And I think that goes with people like my wife's reaction to the mushroom movie, right? Like one version of the story is this isn't her bag. The other version is she just keeps trying the wrong thing and she hasn't found that piece yet.
And I think it was probably the way the message or attempted to be was delivered or attempted to be delivered. I think knowing from what your wife kind of reaction was, I feel like if it hit her up with like, here's a bunch of dudes in lab coats talking about the science, talking about this is how your brain functions on those mushrooms, this is the changes we see, even if there was that emotional component, that probably would have hit more for her with that those data points, you know? Right.
Well, Myra, what I like about what you're doing though, and a lot of people that we have conversations with, I like the same thing, is people like my wife who have a bit of a wall up or a disbelief. And actually there's one line in that movie that I actually think was amazing. She's like, the biggest delusion we have is that we can't get on the path. And I was like, you know what? That is really like a great summary, right? Like, it's kind of like, you literally can go sit down right now and meditate in a corner. You don't need a guru. You don't need a tape.
Anything.
You don't need anything. Costs nothing except for your time. But like one of the things, Tom and I use this Muse headband a lot. And it's one of the things I like about it is it reminds me through a physical thing, an EEG on my head, like, no, you're not taking this seriously right now. Yeah. Like you're not taking this seriously, and we can quantifiably tell you that you're not taking this seriously. So it keeps me honest. But that took me a decade to find, and probably another 5 years to actually accept and integrate. And
I bought the Muse back in 2017. I claim I've been meditating since 1994. I didn't have a consistent practice until about 6.5 years ago, where it was like every day, no stopping. And I think having, one foot in the kind of spiritual world and one foot in the technology world is what I needed. So I needed the headband to actually develop the habit,
Okay. That makes sense.
And I think finding what you are good at and explaining that like there's another version and here's a couple ideas, I think is becoming the sort of currency of awakening, if you will. Like people are finding out like, oh, look, I went and looked at Myra's book and learned these 2 or 3 things. And now I'm going to fold them in. I don't like this one as much. I love this one a lot. This one's just good on the back burner, right? Now I'm going to go to the next thing. And
it's not just meditation that's beneficial for things. I think the silent meditation is really good for unwinding, healing, just getting the garbage out of the mind. We encounter all these stimuli, thoughts, experiences, like thousands and thousands of stimuli on a daily basis. I always say that meditation is like emptying the garbage bin, because you got to get rid of all the stimuli. It's like it digests it. So we eat food, the fire digests it. You eliminate it, it's gone. If you don't meditate, you're not digesting the stimuli and the experiences you have on a daily basis. You're not really fully processing them and allowing them to move on so you can be in the present moment. But then there's plenty of mindfulness techniques out there. It really bothers me when people say mindfulness meditation, because I'm like, to me, meditation is silent. Mindfulness is active, cognitive thought, where you're trying to elicit something in particular. And I think that is equally as important. And there's tons of mindfulness practices, whether It's chanting mantras or doing visualizations or doing affirmations or conscious breathing, conscious walking. I mean, there's hundreds and thousands of ways to be mindful. I do like meditation. I really love chanting. Right now, I've been in a very long daily sadhana of chanting like the entire Rudram from start to finish.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
so it's funny. I got into Om.
Clarity. Oh my gosh. Like the focus, the clarity, the fire, just the oomph that gives you that's like off the charts.
I noticed years ago that if I was in a yoga class and then they incorporated ohms at the end of the practice, it's almost like that vibration wrapped my entire experience in like a bulletproof shell of just like energy, right? Like I was just like, you know, like it just.
And you can go conquer, right?
Yeah, totally. It was like sort of like what just happened? And I noticed that if I didn't do that, it was still a great practice for the most part. I yoga is kind of, you know, like sex. Even bad yoga is still really good yoga. You know what I mean? Like
yoga. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's still good yoga, man. You know, but that Om really just punches that thing into high gear. And I just got to thinking, I'm like, well, could I just do this on my own? But then like I got in my own head. I'm like, I got to wait till everybody's out of the house because I look like
you're gonna sound weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I look like a fucking jerk.
I gotta say, even the Monroe tapes though, Matt, like it there is that kind of guttural that you do as the induction. And that came from a dude that worked for the CIA. So like once again, both sides of the brain they figured something out neurologically that this helps with.
Yeah, that's why that dreaming yourself awake thing is so powerful to me, because like none of this stuff is new. So, you know, we're like, oh, can you believe a CIA guy came up with this? I'm like, yeah, because he's a human being.
Yeah.
We all got, I mean, you know, like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, you know, because it doesn't matter who it comes from. I mean, I feel like we knew all this crap at one point. We just kind of forgot most of it. But so Myra, I mean, are you sort of, are books going to be, do you have more on the horizon? Should we expect some more out of you? Like, I mean, I feel like
expect more books out of me at some point in time, but right now I am focused on fundraising for my nonprofit organization, Gita for the Masses.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit.
I have a dream of creating a consciousness center here in New York City that is not affiliated with any lineage, tradition, or particular spiritual belief, but that teaches these principles, helps people to find meditation, mindfulness, spiritual practices that resonate with them, while also bringing people and thought leaders together from different religions and traditions to really promote interreligious dialogue and interfaith harmony. So like, while I do want to definitely teach mindfulness, meditation, chanting, the practices that I do and have a space for that, I want it to be a place that is supportive of consciousness as a whole and bringing people of diverse beliefs and traditions together under an umbrella of unity. And I don't think that a lot of the centers or temples or spiritual places, they, of course, don't do that because that's not their mission. They're there to teach their specific way, and that's absolutely needed. But I think that this is needed too. I think we're in a time, especially with the presidential election and how that went, there's a lot of people who are very afraid, angry, not certain like what to do or where to look. And we need to come together better as a community and provide people with better resources to overcome their challenges.
And I think that is hitting the nail on the head, because I think, like I was saying a little while ago, I've got tons of tools in my toolbox.
Yes.
And on any given day, if I'm feeling a little off, like I just reach in and grab the 1 or 2 or 3 tools that are good for my current state. But that took decades to put that toolbox together, right? Like, exactly. And that was very conscious. I've gone way out of my way to find people who can help me do it better, tell me if I'm doing it wrong, suggest new tools.
Yes.
But the average person, and I hate to keep picking on my wife, but people like her, I feel like, are more quote unquote normal in the world.
My wife doesn't listen to the show, and I don't shit talk her.
Yeah. No, I'm not shit talking her.
We know Matt does.
I'm using her as a prototypical example.
I'm playing,
right?
man.
Yeah. No, I know.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not swinging at her.
But if somebody in that mindset was aware of a new option, I feel like when that pain threshold reaches a certain level, whatever that is for you, you're going to start to have to peel these back because there's only so much Xanax you can take, or, you know what I mean? Like it's not sustainable, right? Because that creates other problems that are arguably worse.
The way the things are going right now are not sustainable. I mean, let's be honest. The way politics, the state of the country, the fear mongering, even dating, you know, I mean, look at what a shit show that has turned into, like, especially post-pandemic. People just don't seem to know how to, one, interact with themselves and therefore interact in a healthy way with others. That's yet another reason why I love dance, because it teaches a lot of social etiquette and communication that is nonverbal. There's many, you know, there's many tools and things that, like, we can have in our arsenal, whether we want to give them a label of spirituality or not, that are beneficial. But there's just so much wrong for so many people right now. We do need more offerings for people, and place where they know that they can come and learn a better set of tools that's going to push them forward.
Right. And we've kind of peeled this back a little bit, but the political thing is interesting because the way the social media algorithms work, and we can go into that on another show, it basically intentionally puts people in an us versus them mentality. And so 2016, we had half the population feeling elated and half the population feeling like shit. 2020, that augmented even higher. Like, it took one step further, except it switched sides, right? And now we're back one step further up the ladder, switching sides again. And my fear is that on the current trajectory, apolitically, I want to just say that's just so weird because this isn't a political show, but we are stuck in this sort of swap, right? Like, so this guy will fuck it up for the next 4 years and then it'll switch. And then that guy will fuck it up for the next 4 years and it'll switch. But it leaves 50% of the population feeling like shit, you know, and that's not healthy.
Because we're always very, fairly equally split. You're right. It's a sad place that we're in right now when it feels like that the country is so divided. And then, of course, mentality is different based on, like, where you live, your socioeconomic status, everything. But yeah, the thing that bothers me has nothing to do with politics itself. It's just the fear that is being incited in people, and that they don't feel included or valued, or that they don't have control over their bodies or reproductive rights or other things. Just that fear is our biggest enemy. It's like one of the biggest things that we have to learn to overcome. And when it's coming from an external place, it makes it really difficult to do that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that a trigger word, which gets 25 conversations out of it as well, is this socioeconomic relationship to these topics too, because by and large, these health topics generally tend to favor the socioeconomic high end of that spectrum, right? I mean,
almost all of the decisions favor people in a better socioeconomic status. And that is unfortunately just the way that things are right now. And yeah, when people don't have the resources that they need, or you're afraid, that's when bad decisions are made. I mean,
and that's exactly the problem, right? Like, so if you are already living in fear on a Maslow's hierarchy, right? You haven't quite checked that whole triangle off. Well, if you just add in all of these other, you know, geopolitical things, you know, it's adding too many logs to the fire. And I think that ends up in
there was a German philosopher in 1865 that had this all worked out pretty well, but show's not supposed to be about dialectic materialism.
Oh man. So how do we? So this consciousness center, where are you at in that journey? I'm curious. This sounds like a cool idea. Like, what is that? Where are you at with it? Are we formed? Are we forming?
Well, the nonprofit was formed back in 2010, and honestly, it sat on the back burner for a while because God, goddess, whatever you want to call that, universal energy, redirected me towards shaping my personal brand, growing an entirely separate company. You know, I mean, in addition to, like, my books and the work that I do through my Jaya Jaya Myra brand, I also run a full-scale PR and communication.
I was just going to say, you're a PR person too, which is, I think is awesome for me personally, because I'm in advertising tech and stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's funny. One of the reasons you and I originally kind of hit it off was that we have this weird Venn diagram of two sort of unique things that are not super unique, but putting them together is somewhat unique. And so I wanted to talk, but I was like, yeah, we're going to go through this whole show, not even mention our PR company, which I'm sure is fine, but
it's absolutely fine. But yes, I'm very spiritual, but I'm one of those spiritual people who also thinks that money and materialism is not in contradiction to spirituality.
Well, sure. And you live in New York City, which is not cheap.
Well, you're not getting a.
There needs to be rent paid or mortgage paid, and either of those things.
That's a thing in and of itself. And I think that's one of those big lessons I was really supposed to understand fully in this lifetime is yes, like money, matter, none of this stuff here. This is never a threat to spirituality, and it needs to be integrated and divinized. Like I'm also very well versed in the yoga of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, their school of like integral yoga. And yes, divinize everything. Money, sex, and power needs to be divinized, needs to be made conscious. And so, yeah, New York City is the best place in the world for me to be. I absolutely do love it here. But as far as the nonprofit and the center, in the beginning of the fundraising mode for that, so we can secure the money for a physical property here that we own outright, that we can do a lot of our classes and teachings out of, that's a permanent location. You know, it's just like a temple.
Yeah, you need a home base for sure.
You need a permanent location. It's not something you can just pick up and move around. It's the experience that we're going after for people, the experience that the energy, the location, the vibration is going to provide, and the quality of the education and the teachers and things we bring in. It's not just, oh, I can go teach this Bhagavad Gita class somewhere else. It's the experience of having like the center and coalescing community, which is important. So we are actively fundraising for that in the beginning stages of it, starting to have conversations. And as that moves forward, we will locate the right property for that here.
Yeah. In Manhattan. Well, that too is sort of like I found with properties over my short time on this earth, like buying and selling real estate is you got to let go of that as well, and just realize that when the right channel is open, you'll find it, right? Like
exactly.
Exactly. It's like, oh, but this is the perfect house, but somebody outbid us. I'm like, it wasn't the perfect house. Well, then it wasn't
the perfect house.
Yeah, it wasn't the perfect house.
You gotta like have faith in that. But I see so many of the other spiritual centers struggling to pay their rent and get by. I'm just like, I'm not going to do it that way, universe. No. You really want me to do this? Bought and paid for up front.
Right.
That's my stipulation, and you will do it this way, or I'm not doing it. Because I have free will and I have choice over how I utilize my energy and how I choose to share this message. So I think a lot of people don't really realize how much of a co-creator of their reality that they really are, and that you can bring the things and the opportunities that you want to you. And I've just made it clear. It's like, I'm not going to do this unless you do it this way, because this is the way that I know is going to best serve people. And I'm not going to have this constant burden hanging over my head of how am I going to pay rent.
Right. Well, and that sort of is an energy blocker too, right? Like if you're trying to like build a community energy and it's got this looming lead weight bearing down on the top of it, it prevents that growth, I think, in so many things. I mean, this is true in everything. My kids make fun of me constantly for oftentimes buying, equipment, cameras, whatever. And I'm like, look, I need to do this because I'm exploring something that's got a certain vibration for me that I need to get to. And these things pave that road for me. If I couldn't do them or couldn't afford them or whatever, because somebody's like, how much money would you need to make? I'm like, that's the wrong question to ask, because it has nothing to do with a number. I need to be able to have unfettered access to creative energy. I don't know what that means. And it certainly changes month to month, year to year. But like, that's what I know about myself, right? I can provide a high value to my friends, family, clients if I don't have to worry about, oh, my web camera died and I need a new one, right? Like, it's like, I don't want to be like, all right, well, if I phase this, over 3 months, I could, like that is a block. Then now all of a sudden the energy that I wanted that thing for is now completely muddled with other things.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So I hear you, man.
I don't want to get into that vibe with a fledgling like
no
a center. It's like what we are really offering as a value proposition is the experience, and the experience is foundational to I think even want to learn and grow and cultivate the self-development. And it's a piece that a lot of people overlook. So I'm really excited about this, though. I think
it is exciting.
It's more the time and the place than ever. Just the state of the world right now, I can understand why I was asked to wait to do this. And now I'm really ready to hit the ground running and get the center off the ground and going. It's definitely very needed right now. And of course, I'm still going to have my PR and communications company, and it will provide a lot of support to the center as well.
Sure. Well, I mean, you'll be doing the PR for it, I assume. So like you kind of you can control that narrative real tightly. But
you know, so I mean, and we already have been. We've already done a lot to try and just get the words conscious character development out into the world. That is a phrase that was not on the radar at all before we started actively putting it out in media, traditional media, social media. I want this to be a key phrase, conscious character development. I think it's just pivotal for where the world needs to go at this point.
We had a woman on, it's not published yet, but she put into existence, willed into existence, if you will, the term somatic movement, and she runs it out of New York City. Actually, she's probably like very close to you, but it was amazing listening to her because the phrase didn't exist. She knew in her mind what message she was trying to get across.
She got in trouble for using education too.
Yeah, right. Like she went through all these.
You can't do that. The teachers don't like it.
Yeah.
Just like healers cannot use the word cure. We have to say heal.
Right. Yeah. So it was interesting. She literally willed this phrase into existence, and now it's the industry name for it. Like it became the word.
Yes.
Took her 35 years or so to actually make that happen.
But it happens. There's another phrase that I coined in my book, inner prosperity. We always think of prosperity as being outer and material wealth, but we forget about the inner energy that creates that. Like things like faith, hope, and love are like foundational. Faith,
right.
Love, clarity, things that are not tangible, but shape your reality in a powerful way and give you energy.
And again, going back to what we said at the top of the show, those words have power that sort of get people sort of bought into that concept, right? Somatic movement, inner prosperity, these things paint a succinct and clear picture, right? So it's nice.
Exactly.
Well, so how do we help you? How do we send people your way? How do we get people your way? Like where should we point people?
Jaya Jaya Myra, anywhere online.
Yeah, you're pretty easy to find.
Media handles are consistent, jayajayamyra.com. I try to make it very, very easy for people.
It's like somebody in marketing set it up.
Yeah. It's almost like you do PR. Yeah. That's like funny.
Well thought out branded campaign.
Yeah. That's funny. And I know you've got a bunch of books on Amazon and whatnot, including one in Romanian, which I wanted to
books, but the first one is published in 10 languages. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I saw one in Romanian. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Romanian was one of the Estonian, like Romanian, Polish, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese.
Hitting the Eastern Bloc hard, man.
Yeah, they loved it. It's like they wanted all those vibrational healing topics.
That's so funny.
Very,
that makes sense though. There was a lot.
Yeah, did you PR yourself into those countries, or did it just sort of take on?
Through the publisher. That was through them selling like the subsidiary rights to the publishers in those countries that wanted the book. I mean, I guess my publisher really did hit the nail on the head because they came to me and said, "We need someone to write this book, and we can't find anyone." I guess it should not have been surprising that it also maybe other publishers were having the same problem at that time.
Interesting.
So yeah, it got into 10 languages within about 2 or 3 years of publication.
Wow.
Went with a bigger publisher for my next book, which unfortunately launched right in the middle of the pandemic. So it shot a lot. I had really big book launch and book tour plans. And of course that all came to a screeching.
That was the soul book, right?
That was a Soul of Purpose.
Soul of Purpose. Yeah.
And I really love that book too. I think that one, the first book is like your resource manual. Like the whole second section is like all about techniques and stuff. So it's more of like your reference guide.
Tom wrote one of those.
Yeah. The Soul it's a little more conversational, and it's kind of like a step-by-step path, the way that the chapters are outlined, almost like how the Bhagavad Gita is like a step-by-step path of it. If you implement it in this way, you're going to grow synergistically, and just everything's going to fit together in a nice way for you. That's the way that I wrote the Soul of Purpose. If you take this step and then this and then this and then this, it's going to have a profound impact on your ability to grow quickly and rapidly.
Sure. And I think that's actually one of the things that you're going to, I think you'll find successful in the center would be the fact that I think the reason these mono practice places are struggling is because it's mono, right? Like it's just
one thing.
It's just Dharma meditation. It's just Catholic Church. It's just this. It's just that. It's just whatever. Whereas what you're describing kind of hits that internet ADHD button pretty hard too, because you can go and kind of learn a little bit about everything, which is super culturally relevant right now.
And you can also do very deep dive, like one of our pivotal programs that we'll be launching, since you guys like to geek out on spirituality as much as I do.
100%.
I can see, I am creating a course of study on conscious character development, which is based on the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, translated and interpreted from a divine feminine perspective, which has never been done.
Wow, that is a lot to wrap my head around, actually. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
actually, it's pretty profound, and a lot of people don't know this either. But we've got the Bhagavad Gita, but then you have the Chandipat, which is also a 700-word scripture, which is about the goddess Durga, and they say very similar things from opposite perspectives. So basically, what I'm doing is taking that divine feminine slant to a scripture and interpreting it really for householders and people who have careers and relationships and want to stay dynamically, actively involved in the world. But it's also going to bring in like modern psychology and explain the differences between here's what this says, but now here's your on-the-job training for what does this look like in day-to-day life? Like, what are the typical problems people face in their relationships? What needs to be overcome? What are the typical problems people face with themselves or in work environments? Looking at attachment styles and attachment theory and how that relates to spirituality and psychological growth and development. Basically, you want to be a good, well-rounded, healthy person who is able to support yourself and be loving and conscious of other people. Well, here's what it looks like in all these different scenarios of your life. It's like, here's what the original teachings say, and now here's how we make it applicable to day-to-day life. So it's like really taking it a lot further than a lot of places do to help people understand, like, hey, how you treat your partner really does matter. How you treat your kids matter. How you treat yourself, how you advocate for yourself in a work environment does matter. And it's all these little small pieces that are going to add up to make tremendous, huge change in the world.
And I think that's the bridge that nobody's willing to build.
No one is doing it right now. And
right. Like nobody wants to build that bridge.
I want to. That's my life dream.
Yeah. No, I think it's great, but I'm saying, I was going to ask him, like, why do you think no one's done it? I'm like, well, I know, because that sounds like a lot of work.
It's a lot. It's my life dream and my purpose, I believe, to putting these things out there and teaching people how to have really, truly full, active, dynamic lives to where you're successful, prosperous, and abundant, if that is what you want, and also spiritually awakened, self-realized, and making an impact in the world. I want to see people in real jobs and in medicine and in law and in tech and in politics that are conscious. And we don't do that if everyone steps out of their life and goes and lives in an ashram.
It's almost the exact opposite right now. Actually, everyone's on almost like drone autopilot.
Anti-consciousness.
Right. Well, and that's why we need more conscious decision impact makers in the world. We need to teach people the skill sets. And if you can grab them like when they're young, especially in their 20s, like when I came to these teachings, hopefully by the time they're in their 30s or 40s, they'll be doing what I'm doing now, and you give someone 15 or 20 years and then they're going to be creating an entirely different world.
My hope is that all of these dialogues that we're having now with people that are just before that age of the real power people in the world, right? Because those power people tend to be in their late 50s, 60s, 70s, right? Like these are people that have sort of taken senior leader roles in places. Those people are still part of that old sort of like guarded, not conscious thinking, like we're kind of asleep at the wheel on autopilot. But everyone right before them is in various stages of not that. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens like, do they drink the Kool-Aid and stay the course, or do they say, no, it's time to sort of shed this and move our game up?
Matt's red pill, blue pilling it, but reinventing it.
Well, I mean, I just think it's like we're almost there, right? Like if it's going to work, it's going to work in the very near future because we're kind of at that bubble right now.
Well, but
right?
to talk about, I mean, you're saying that, right? The pendulum, the more you swing it one way, the harder and faster it goes the other.
Yeah, and we'll see if it is actually swings. I mean, are we not yet? I mean, put it this way, we need the pendulum to swing to cure any of this. So
absolutely.
So like, I guess maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I'm like, I think it kind of feels like we're almost at the zenith of that.
I feel like we're at the part where the infection has erupted to the surface.
Yeah.
And now it can be, aspirated, cleaned out, and disinfected and bandaged up. So
we're pulling back that bow, like you said. We're almost there now. That's what I mean. Now is the most wonderful time to be putting myself out there and fighting against that narrative of being asleep, unawake, unconscious. Like, it's truly important to do good in the world. And I think people, they need motivation and encouragement to get there. They need good role models. And we're lacking a lot of that right now.
And you not divorcing those two things, I think, is another thing that people need to start to understand more. I certainly don't vilify money. It's what fuels my creative energy. So I'm not going to like vilify it. I don't worship it either. You know what I mean?
We shouldn't be worshiping most things that people idolize and worship. Therein is the problem. Nothing can keep you away from God and divinity except the falsity of your own aspiration and desire for it. It's when you put other gods above it, whether that's money, sex, ego, power. We create these idols in our mind, and that is the issue. Because we divinize things that should never be divinized. What we should, however, divinize is ourselves, is other people, particularly our romantic partners and spouses. We should be seeing like the God and goddess in the people around us and helping to awaken that energy on a daily basis and reminding people what they're truly capable of, as opposed to just constantly putting people down or using them to prop us up. And these concepts they're not in the mainstream yet. And I think it'll take a long time for that to get into the mainstream. But if we can even at least plant the seed now, 20 years down the road, that's going to be growing very well. Another 20 years after that, it's going to be a lot more common knowledge. With 60 years, people are going to be like, what, something was ever anything other than what it is now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're there now with the other side of it. So yeah, totally. Well, Myra, thank you so much for coming. We're going to wrap it up,
or we're going to have a 4-hour episode.
Keep going. I mean, we keep going and going and going forever. So, but thank you so much for coming on. We're going to link to all this and everything, and we'll send it out to you when it's up. But I loved sharing some time with you, and thanks for everything you brought to this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, great. Well, guys, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.